The release of 2008's The Curious Case of Benjamin Button found director David Fincher without a follow-up project immediately in the pipeline. His brief flirtation with Oscar glory may have been ultimately unsuccessful, but it also had an unexpected side effect in that he was freed from the confining expectations that plagued his award-winning contemporaries. The disappointment of Benjamin Button served to inspire and re-energize Fincher, giving him a newfound confidence in articulating his razor-sharp worldview. As the 21st century entered its second decade, Fincher built on the foundations he established with Zodiac and Benjamin Button by committing fully to the digital revolution and hastening its wide adoption throughout the industry. One of several spots that Fincher created for Nike in 2008, Speed Chain depicts the evolution of speed, starting with a snake coming out of the water, morphing into a man, and finally a speeding bullet train. The piece is presented in Fincher's preferred 2:40:1 aspect ratio, as well as his signature cold color palette and CGI-augmented camera movements. Fate, Leave Nothing is another exceptional piece of advertising, set to a trip-hop remix of Ennio Morricone's score for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, as two young boys develop essential football skills like agility and strength over the span of several years. It all culminates in a key confrontation between the two on the field as they collide with explosive force. Alongside the ever-present visual signatures, the piece is indicative of a major fascination of Fincher's from this period in his career, the passage of time. In 2009, Fincher did two spots for Apple's iPhone line of products. The first, iPhone 3G, teases the secrecy that usually surrounds the release of a new iPhone by depicting the complicated security process of accessing Apple's laboratories. The sleek contrast and steely look is characteristic of Fincher, but fits in quite sublimely with Apple's own branding. The colorless set is full of various security tech and looks like something out of a Stanley Kubrick movie, which is fitting for a director whose work is profoundly influenced by him.
The next iPhone. It's the iPhone you love. Now.
Fincher's 2009 spot for Nike, Trail of Destruction, is incredibly artful in its high-contrast, black-and-white approach. Fincher's characteristic use of CGI as a storytelling tool, and not just for visual flash, can be seen at the end, where the football player protagonist retires to the locker room and exhibits a lizard-like skin pattern of scales. Game Breakers is all computer-generated, and as such it hasn't aged as well. It looks more like an old video game, but perhaps that was the intent. Fincher once again works with cinematographer Claudio Miranda, who shot live-action face elements that were then mapped onto CG bodies. The idea is similar to the tech employed for The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, but reversed and applied to a dynamic action sequence.
I thought you were gonna block.
Man, I thought you were gonna run.
Facebook is easily the biggest, most transformative development of the early 21st century. It completely revolutionized how we communicate with each other, how we keep in touch with old friends and family, and even how we use the internet on a fundamental level. At the end of the day, however, Facebook is a tool, a product, a collection of ones and zeros organized just so and projected onto our monitors. So when it was announced that the West Wing creator Aaron Sorkin had written a screenplay based off The Accidental Billionaires, Ben Mesrick's book on Facebook's turbulent founding, the question on everyone's minds was, how could they ever make a movie out of Facebook? As Mesrick's book revealed, the inside story of Facebook's genesis was fraught with an almost Shakespearean level of drama, intrigue, and betrayal. Sorkin's script, The Social Network, was a high-profile project from day one. It attracted the efforts of top producers like Scott Rudin, in addition to well-known personalities like Kevin Spacey, who signed on to executive produce the film. When Fincher was handed the director's chair, the buzz around the film became a roar.
I've already apologized in the Crimson to the ABHW, to Fuerza Latina, and to any women at Harvard who may have been insulted, as I take it that they were. As for any charges stemming from the breach of security, I believe I deserve some recognition from this board.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
I don't understand.
Which part?
The Social Network would live or die on the strengths of its performances, a notion that the technically minded Fincher employed into his approach by placing an unusual amount of focus on them. Beginning with a generous 3 weeks of rehearsal time prior to the shoot, and following through with consistently demanding an obscene number of takes, Fincher led his cast into delivering searing, career-best performances.
Do you see any of your code on Facebook?
Side, could
Mark, did I use any of your code?
you stole our whole goddamn idea.
Fellas, Match.com for
Can I
Harvard
continue
guys.
with my deposition?
You know, you really don't need a forensics team to get to the bottom of this. If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
The lion's share of the attention and the film's only acting nomination at the Oscars went to Jesse Eisenberg's pitch-perfect portrayal of Mark Zuckerberg, or rather, Sorkin's fictional version of the real-life Facebook founder.
But I'm not talking about a dating site. I'm talking about taking the entire social experience of college and putting it online.
I can't feel my legs.
I know. I'm totally psyched about this too.
Eisenberg plays Zuckerberg as a cold genius with sarcastic, antisocial tendencies. He is regularly absent from the present. His mind is elsewhere, preoccupied by his duties back at the office. At the same time, he can be calculating and ruthless when he needs to be.
I was your only friend. Yet one friend.
As Eduardo Saverin, the initial investor and embattled ex-CFO of Facebook, Andrew Garfield delivers a breakout performance.
Why does your status say single on your Facebook page? What? Why does your relationship status say single on your Facebook page?
I was single when I set up the page.
And you just never bothered to change it?
I
What?
don't know how.
Decent, passionate, and perhaps a little bit squirrely, Saverin is Zuckerberg's closest friend and confidant, a brother. But the relationship is a Cain and Abel story, and because he blindly trusts that Zuckerberg will do the right thing and look out for him, he unwittingly assumes the Abel position.
And I'll bet what you hated the most is that they identified me as a co-founder of Facebook, which I am. You better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for everything.
So what do you do?
I'm an entrepreneur.
You're unemployed.
I wouldn't say that.
What would you say?
That I'm an entrepreneur.
Well, then what was your latest preneur?
Well, I founded an internet company that let folks download and share music for free.
Kind of like Napster?
Exactly like Napster.
What do you mean?
I founded Napster.
Pop icon Justin Timberlake plays Sean Parker, the creator of Napster and Silicon Valley's de facto bad boy. Timberlake easily channels a flashy, cocky, and flamboyant physicality that's at once both undeniably attractive to Zuckerberg and duplicitously sleazy to Saverin. Fincher's casting of Timberlake is quite playful, and he doesn't pull any punches when it comes to pointing out the irony of a pop star playing a man who single-handedly transformed, or as some might say ruined, his industry.
Drop the. Just Facebook. It's cleaner. Shit.
Fincher's eclectic supporting players serve as rock-solid satellites that orbit around the film's three leads.
You are probably going to be a very successful computer person. You're going to go through life thinking that girls don't like you because you're a nerd. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that that won't be true. It'll be because you're an asshole.
Fincher's series of collaborations with the Mara clan begins here, with the casting of Rooney Mara as Erica Albright, Zuckerberg's ex-girlfriend. She's patient and honest, but in a no-bullshit kind of way that's not afraid to tell people off and put them in their place.
The internet's not written in pencil, Mark, it's written in ink. And you published that Erica Albright was a bitch right before you made some ignorant crack about my family's name, my bra size, and then rated women based on their hotness.
Erica, is there a problem?
No, there's no problem. You write your snide bullshit from a dark room because that's what the angry do nowadays. I was nice to you. Don't torture me for it.
If we could just go somewhere for a minute.
I don't want to be rude to my friends.
Mara turns in a spectacular, low-profile performance that would lead to high-profile roles in other films, not the least of which would be the lead in Fincher's next project, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
The site got 2,200 hits within 2 hours?
22,000.
Rashida Jones, better known for her work on Parks and Rec, plays the admittedly thankless role of Marilyn Delpy, an insightful young lawyer in Zuckerberg's deposition. Her knack for comedy is well documented in her larger body of work, but here she shows off a fantastic serious side that's consistently realistic.
I'm not a bad guy.
I know that. When there's emotional testimony, I assume 85% of it is exaggeration.
And the other 15?
Perjury. Creation myths need a devil.
What, do you want to hire an IP lawyer and sue him?
No, I want to hire the Sopranos to beat the shit out of him with a hammer.
We don't even have to do that. That's right. We can do that ourselves. I'm 6'5", 220, and there's 2 of me.
Armie Hammer's dual performance as the Winklevoss twins was yet another of the film's many breakouts. Hammer's portrayal of the film's primary set of antagonists required the dashing young actor to not only change his physicality between Tyler and Cameron by mere degrees, but also to undergo the arduous process of motion capturing his face for its later digital compositing onto the body of actor Josh Pence. Pence, it should be noted, is the great hero of the piece, as he valiantly forfeited his own facial performance in service to Fincher's vision. And last but not least, Joseph Mazzello turns up in his highest profile role since 1993's Jurassic Park as the anxious, nerdy Dustin Moskovitz, Zuckerberg's roommate at Harvard and one of Facebook's founding fathers.
Mark, there is a girl in your art history class. Her name is Stephanie Addis. Do you happen to know if she has a boyfriend?
People don't walk around with a sign on them that says them.
Mark?
Fincher's foray into digital filmmaking soldiers on in The Social Network, but this time he swaps out the Viper FilmStream camera with its maximum resolution of 1080 pixels for the glorious 4K visuals of the Red 1 camera. His Fight Club cinematographer, Jeff Cronin, returns to shoot The Social Network in Fincher's preferred 240:1 aspect ratio, ultimately bagging a cinematography Oscar nomination for his trouble. Fincher and Cronin convey an overall cold tone without relying on the obvious blue side of the color spectrum. Warmer shots are dialed into a yellow hue, with a prominent green cast coating several shots. Fincher's visual signature is immediately apparent, once again utilizing high contrast lighting and practical lamps that make for dark, cavernous interiors. In shooting the film, Fincher and Cronin pursued a simple, unadorned look. Combined with the digital format's increased sensitivity to light, most lighting setups were reportedly completed in 20 minutes or less. The camera work is sedate and observational, containing none of the flashiness of its tonal kindred spirit, Fight Club. When the camera does move, the name of the game is precision, meaning calculated dolly moves or the motion-controlled perfection of the technocrane. There's only one handheld shot in the entire film, when Timberlake's Parker drunkenly approaches a bedroom door at a house party to find police on the other side. The Social Network marks production designer Donald Graham Burt's third consecutive collaboration with Fincher, and third consecutive period piece. Thankfully, reconstructing the mid-2000s isn't as arduous a process as recreating the San Francisco of the 70s, or New Orleans during large swaths of the 20th century. The major challenge on Burt's part was replicating a well-known campus like Harvard in an authentic manner when the school refused to let the production film on their grounds. Shots filmed at Johns Hopkins University, as well as various locations in Los Angeles, are unified in time and space by Fincher's editing team of Angus Wall and Kirk Baxter. The director's adoption of digital techniques extends well into the post-production realm, where his approach meant that any promises that technology would make for editing any easier went right out the window. On set, Fincher routinely used 2 cameras for each setup, effectively doubling his coverage. Compound that with his penchant for demanding dozens upon dozens of takes, and Wall and Baxter were ultimately left with over 268 hours of raw digital footage to sift through. A momentous task made all the more complicated by Fincher's tendency to mix and match elements from various takes, right down to individual syllables of audio, to achieve the cadence of performance he desired. The new tools that digital filmmaking affords have certainly unleashed Fincher's control freak tendencies. But when that same obsession results in his strongest work to date, and Oscar wins for his editing team, it can hardly be called a bad thing.
Everybody, you are at one of the oldest, one of the most exclusive clubs, not just at Harvard, but in the world. And I want to welcome you all to Phoenix Club's first party of the fall semester.
One of the most immediate and striking aspects of The Social Network is its unconventional music score. Written by Nine Inch Nails frontman Trent Reznor in his first scoring job after a series of casual collaborations with Fincher. Partnering with Atticus Ross, Reznor has managed to create an entirely electronic sound that not only evokes his own artistic aesthetic, but also complements the film's tone perfectly.
Check this out.
Reznor's Oscar-winning suite of cues is rather spooky, unifying all the disparate elements with a haunting buzzing sound that's the musical equivalent of dancing on a razor's edge. The now iconic main theme uses melancholy piano plunks that recall nostalgia and childhood, slowly getting softer and lost to audio buzz and droning as Zuckerberg strays from innocence.
You sent my client 16 emails. In the first 15, you didn't raise any concerns.
Is that a question?
In the 16th email, you raised concerns about the site's functionality. Were you leading them on for 6 weeks?
No.
Then why didn't you raise any of these concerns before?
It's raining.
I'm sorry?
It just started raining.
Mr. Zuckerberg, do I have your full attention?
No.
Another standout is a rearrangement of Edvard Grieg's classical masterpiece In the Hall of the Mountain King during the Henley Regatta rowing sequence, which sounds as though it were filtered through the manic electric prism of Wendy Carlos, Stanley Kubrick's composer on The Clockwork Orange and The Shining. Fincher's go-to sound guy, Ren Kleiss, layers everything into a coherent audio mix that would net him his own Oscar nomination.
Here's my question. How do you distinguish yourself in a population of people who all got 1600 on their SATs?
I didn't know they take SATs in China.
They don't. I wasn't talking about China anymore. I was talking about me.
You got a 1600?
Yes. I could sing in an a cappella group, but I can't
Does that
sing.
mean you actually got nothing wrong?
I could row crew or invent a $25 PC.
Or you get into a final club?
Or I get into a final club.
Kleiss and Fincher's approach to the sonic palette of The Social Network is interesting, in that they don't shy away from mixing in loud music and ambiance during crowded scenes like the opening tavern sequence, or the midpoint nightclub sequence.
This is our time. This time, you're gonna hand them a business card that says, "I'm CEO, bitch." That's what I want for you.
The dialogue is almost lost among the loud din of activity, signaling to the audience that they'll really have to listen over the next 2 hours. Despite being a primarily talkie film, the experience of watching The Social Network is anything but passive. The Social Network takes all of Fincher's core thematic fascinations and bottles them up into a singular experience. The director's opening credits are always inspired, and The Social Network is no different. Echoing the character's composed, plotting nature, Fincher shows us Eisenberg running robotically through the Harvard campus late at night. It not only establishes the setting well, but also introduces us to the lead character's relentless forward focus. Treating the text to disappear like it might on a computer screen, and laying Reznor's haunting theme over the whole thing are additional little touches that complete the package. The title shot in this sequence, where we see Zuckerberg run through Harvard Square from an aerial vantage point, also shows off Fincher's inspired use of digital technology in subtle ways. The shot was achieved by placing 3 Red 1 cameras next to each other on top of a building and looking down at the action below. This setup later allowed Fincher to stitch all 3 shots into one super wide panorama of the scene, through which he could follow Zuckerberg via a virtual pan. Mankind's relationship to technology has always been a major staple of Fincher's films, a thematic fascination influenced by his forebear Stanley Kubrick. In The Social Network, this theme comes to a head as the story's main engine. The saga of Mark Zuckerberg is inherently about computers, the internet, our complicated interactions with it, and its effect on our physical world relationships. Whereas Kubrick painted technology as dehumanizing and something to be feared, Fincher sees it as something to embrace, something that distinctly enhances humanity and differentiates one person from the other.
Welcome to Facebook.
In Fincher's work, the human element tends to coalesce around the nihilistic punk subculture. Our protagonist is inherently nihilistic and narcissistic, willing to burn whatever bridge he needs to advance his own personal cause, despite his actions not being fueled by a desire for money or power. The story hits on Fincher's punk fascinations with Zuckerberg's rebelliousness and devil-may-care attitude, in addition to the overt imagery of antisocial computer hackers and the inclusion of the Ramones' California Uber Alice. Finally, Fincher's emphasis on architecture helps to evoke a sense of time and place, mixing in the old-world Harvard brownstones with the sleek modernism of the Facebook offices and deposition rooms, echoing the film's subtext about the old guard stubbornly giving way to a new order.
You must really hate the Winklevosses. I don't hate anybody. The Winklevi aren't suing me for intellectual property theft. They are suing me because for the first time in their lives, things didn't work out the way they were supposed to for them.
When The Social Network debuted in October of 2010, it enjoyed very healthy box office receipts, mostly due to the name recognition of Facebook, as well as our collective curiosity about its eccentric founder. There's a strong case to be made that The Social Network is the best film in Fincher's entire body of work, but that's a hard case to argue considering the strength of the rest of his filmography. The Social Network scored high marks with critics, going on to earn several Oscar nominations and even taking home gold statues for some of the big categories, like editing and adapted screenplay. Ultimately, Fincher himself lost out on his Best Director and Best Picture nominations to The King's Speech. It may not be an entirely accurate reflection of its true-life subject, but The Social Network is a pitch-perfect reflection of what Zuckerberg left in his wake. A society that would never be the same, fundamentally changed by a radical new prism of communication. The late 2000s was a golden era for young adult fiction in both the novel and film mediums. Just look at the runaway success of Twilight or The Hunger Games, the books or the films. It doesn't matter because they're both equally prominent within the respective mediums. Whatever your personal stance on these properties, you can't deny their impact on pop culture. During this time, another book series and subsequent set of movie adaptations captivated an admittedly older set, Stieg Larsson's Millennium Trilogy. Named after the muckraking news magazine that central character Mikhail Blomkvist works for, the books and movies comprise 3 titles: The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Girl Who Played with Fire, and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. In 2009, the first of the Swedish film adaptations came out based on Dragon Tattoo, featuring newcomer Noomi Rapace in a star-making turn as the series' cyberpunk heroine Lisbeth Salander. As the Swedish film trilogy proved successful both at home and abroad, it was inevitable that the major US studios would remake the property for American audiences. The task fell to Sony Pictures, who set up The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo with super producer Scott Rudin overseeing a screenplay by esteemed writer Steve Zaillian. Rudin's natural choice for a director was Fincher, who he had just worked with on The Social Network. Fincher was drawn to the story of 2 mismatched misfits trying to solve a decades-old murder, despite misgivings that he had become the go-to guy for serial killer films after the success of Seven and Zodiac. The tipping point came in Fincher's realization that he would be at the helm of one of the rarest projects in mainstream studio filmmaking, the hard R-rated franchise.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a story, and if it entertains you, maybe you'll decide to help me research further. And if not, I'll do the washing up and you'll never see me again.
What kind of research?
I want you to help me catch a killer of women.
James Bond himself headlines Fincher's pitch black tale, but it's a testament to Daniel Craig's ability that we're never actually reminded of his secret agent exploits throughout the nearly 3-hour running time.
One thing the Vangers have more than their fair share of is anti-Semites.
There's one. Right there.
Craig has been able to avoid the sort of typecasting that doomed others like Pierce Brosnan before him, simply because he refuses to let his roles define him. As disgraced journalist Mikhail Blomkvist, he projects a slightly disheveled appearance that James Bond would never be caught dead in. It may not be the most memorable role of his career, but he turns in a solid, faultless performance regardless.
They say I'm insane. No, it's okay. You can nod, because it's true. I am insane.
The true spotlight goes to Rooney Mara's cold, antisocial hacker punk, Lisbeth Salander. Mara underwent a radical transformation for the role, even so far as getting real piercings, tattoos, dye jobs, and bleaching her eyebrows. Considering her previous collaboration with Fincher was as the squeaky clean girl next door in The Social Network, Mara's appearance in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is gut-level arresting.
May I go?
Moment. Your reporter's light in another area. His personal life.
Anything you chose not to disclose?
He's had a long-standing sexual relationship with his co-editor of the magazine. It wrecked his marriage, but not hers. Sometimes he performs cunnilingus. Not often enough, in my opinion.
The depth of Mara's talent is evident in her unflinching confrontation with the most brutal aspects of her character arc. By giving herself over to the role entirely, she's able to take a character that was already so well defined by Rapace in the Swedish versions and make it completely her own. Her Best Actress nomination at the Oscars was very much deserved. Christopher Plummer, Stellan Skarsgård, and Robin Wright round out Fincher's compelling cast. Plummer is convincing as Henrik Venga, depicting the retired industrialist as a good-natured yet haunted old man.
You will be investigating thieves, misers, bullies, the most detestable collection of people that you will ever meet. My family.
Skarsgård's Martin Venga is the current CEO of the family business, and his established gentleman persona cleverly hides his psychopathic, murderous inclinations.
Oh, Mikael, you know what this is going to look like.
Yeah. Like I've been gutted, like I'm running away. I am. Rennerstrom wants to see me waving a white flag, not a red flag. The more it looks like there's a problem between you and me, the more it'll satisfy.
There is a problem between you and me. He won't be satisfied until he shuts us down. You're leaving me here to fight him alone.
Wright plays Erica Berger, Blomqvist's co-editor at Millennium and his on-again, off-again lover. Wright is by her nature an intelligent and savvy woman, as evidenced not just here, but in her subsequent collaboration with Fincher in House of Cards.
So we're just going to come straight down the middle of this on the 21. I think we're going to want to be up kind of this height, and I'll stabilize it later. So.
In keeping with Fincher's affinity for digital filmmaking technology, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo takes advantage of the Red Epic digital cameras, the next generation of the type that The Social Network was shot on. The film is presented in Fincher's preferred 2:40:1 aspect ratio, but again, it's not true anamorphic. Besides being a reflection of Fincher's general distaste for the limitations of anamorphic lenses, the shooting of the image in full frame and the later addition of a widescreen matte in post-production is a testament to Fincher's need for control. This method allows him to compose the frame exactly as he wants, and the Red Epic's ability to capture 5,000 lines of resolution allows him an even greater degree of precision in zooming in on certain details, blowing up the image, or recomposing the shot without any loss in picture quality. This technology also affords better image stabilization without any of the warping artifacts that plague the process. Cinematographer Jeff Cronin returns for his third collaboration with Fincher, having replaced original director of photography Frederick Baccar 8 weeks into the shoot for reasons unknown. Despite his initial position as a replacement DP, Cronin makes the picture his own, with his efforts rewarded by another Oscar nomination. Fincher's signature aesthetic is very appropriate for the wintry subject matter. His steely color palette of blues, greens, and teals evoke the stark Swedish landscape, and even warmer tones are dialed back to a colder yellow in Fincher's hands. The high-contrast visuals are augmented by realistically placed practical lights that suggest cavernous interiors. Fincher's sedate camera eschews flash in favor of locked-off, strong compositions and observant, calculated dolly work. When the camera moves, it really stands out in an affecting way. Nowhere in the film is this more evident than in the shot where Craig's Blomqvist is in the car approaching Vanga's extravagant mansion for the first time. Presented from the forward-traveling POV of the car itself, the mansion grows larger in the center of the frame, the symmetrical framing conceit suggesting ominous perfection. The fact that the camera is stabilized makes for a smooth, foreboding shot that takes any sort of human element out of the equation, and replaces it with a fundamentally uneasy feeling. Like several key shots in Fincher's larger filmography, the Venga estate approach would become a tastemaker shot that has been copied in his successive project House of Cards. Production designer Donald Graham Burt returns for his fourth Fincher film, artfully creating an authentic sense of place in the Swedish locations, while showing off his impeccable taste and eye for detail. Editing team Angus Wall and Kirk Baxter are key collaborators within Fincher's filmography, and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo would become their second consecutive Oscar win for editing under the director's supervision. Their work for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo really utilizes the advantages that digital filmmaking has to offer, creating a tone that's moody, but yet unlike conventional missing person thrillers. Angus and Wall establish a patient, plodding pace that draws the audience deeper into the mystery before they're even aware of it, echoing Blomqvist's own growing obsession with the case. Trent Reznor and his music partner Atticus Ross reprise their scoring duties, giving the musical palette of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo an appropriately electronic and cold, wintry feeling. Primarily achieved via a recurring motif of bells and ambient soundscapes, the score is also supplemented by a throbbing, heartbeat-like percussion that echoes Salander's simmering anger, as well as the encroaching danger at hand.
Something wrong with the report?
Oh, it was quite thorough. But I'm also interested in what's not in it.
One of Reznor's masterstrokes is his reworking of Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song for the opening credits and trailer, featuring vocals by Yeah Yeah Yeah's frontwoman Karen O. Given a new coat of industrial electronic grunge, the rearrangement instantly conveys the tone and style of the film. Fincher's needle drops are few and far between in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but one source music track stands out because of the sheer audaciousness of its inclusion. In the scene where Skarsgård's Martin Vanga tortures Blomkvist in anticipation of butchering his prey, he fires up the basement stereo system and plays, of all songs, Enya's Orinoco Flow.
Might amuse you to know that while you were upstairs, having moose with me and Lee, who, by the way, finds me very conventional, I had Irina down there in that cage.
The song acts as a hilarious counterpoint to the sheer darkness of the scene's events. However, our laughter becomes a nervous sort of chuckle, the kind we employ to hide a certain kind of fundamental unease and anxiety. Fincher's go-to sound guy, Ren Kleiss, was nominated for yet another Oscar with his standout mix, taking this noxious brew of sounds and turning it into a razor-sharp sonic landscape that complements Fincher's visuals perfectly. On its face, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo doesn't seem like it would call for a substantial amount of computer-generated visual effects. Fincher's background in VFX results in the incorporation of a surprisingly large quantity of effects shots. Almost every exterior shot during the Vanga sequences has some degree of digital manipulation applied to it in the way of subtle matte paintings, scenery extensions, and weather elements that blend together seamlessly to convey Fincher's moody vision and satisfy his desire for total control over his visuals. His affinity for imaginative opening title sequences also continues here. Set to the aforementioned Immigrant Song cover, the sequence plays like a dark nightmare version of those iconic James Bond title sequences, depicting key moments from the film in abstract, archetypical form, as a thick black ooze splashes around violently. The choice to incorporate a black-on-black color scheme is undeniably stylish.
You're backed up, are you?
I'll drive to the home, yeah.
Okay. That's good, because this one's done.
The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo sees Fincher at the peak of his punk and technological aesthetic explorations. While she's not Fincher's creation, the character of Lisbeth Salander fits in quite comfortably within his larger body of work, the culmination of a long flirtation with punk culture. She is most certainly a product of the cyberpunk mentality, valuing rebelliousness through technological proficiency. Unlike other depictions of this subculture in mass media, it's easy to see that Fincher obviously respects it for what it is, and aims to portray it in a realistic manner. Here, he builds upon the downplayed foundation he laid in The Social Network by refusing to generate fake interfaces for Salander to use. He shows Salander actively Googling things, or looking people up on Wikipedia. He doesn't shy away from showing corporate logos and interfaces as they appear in real life. Fincher's body of work is defined by a distinctly nihilistic approach to story and character. With The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo in particular, these sentiments are a prominent part of the storytelling. These protagonists are morally flawed people who aren't afraid of doing bad things to get ahead.
I'll call Gregor, tell him I'm not coming home.
They're mostly atheists, and they don't care whether you like them or not. The themes of abuse that run through the narrative also reflect this overarching mentality, playing out in the form of authority figures exerting their influence and selfish desires over the women that depend on them. We see this reflected both on the bureaucratic level with Salander's lecherous caseworker, as well as on the familial level in Harriet Vanga's repeated rape and abuse at the hands of her brother. Architecture plays a subtle yet evocative role in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. One of the core themes of the story is the clash between New Sweden, represented by Salander's weapons-grade sexual ambiguity and technical proficiency, and Old Sweden, represented by the Vanga family's moneyed lifestyle and sprawling compound. This clash is echoed in the architecture that Fincher chooses to present. The Vanga estate consists of classical stylings and rustic cottages. Compare that to the harsh lines and modern trappings of Martin Vanga's minimalist cliffside residence, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling glass, as well as the whole of Stockholm, very much the model of a modern European city. In showing us this duality of place and time, Fincher is able to draw a line that also points us directly to the narrative's major emphasis on the duality of man. Despite its effortless style and Oscar-caliber performances, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo never really connected with audiences. It opened at a disadvantage, placing third in its debut weekend and never rising above it during the rest of its run. There were, of course, the inevitable comparisons to the original series of film adaptations, with purists preferring them over Fincher's remake. Unfortunately, we will probably never get to see what Fincher would have done with the remaining 2 entries in the series, as the poor box office performance of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo most likely put the kibosh on further installments. Fincher has long been a tastemaker when it comes to commercial American media. His 2 pilot episodes for Netflix's House of Cards, released in 2013, are simply the latest in a long string of works that have influenced how movies are made, how commercials are engineered, and how music videos have evolved. Due to House of Cards' runaway success, he has played a crucial part in making the all-episodes-at-once model the indisputable future of serialized entertainment, while reinforcing the notion that we're living in a new golden age of television.
This is the memo I've drafted on our Middle East policy we've been developing. Now, I want to borrow from Reagan. I'd like to coin the phrase trickle-down diplomacy. That
Frank,
way...
I'm going to stop you there. We are not nominating you for Secretary of State. I know he made you a promise, but circumstances have changed.
The nature of promises, Linda, is that they remain immune to changing circumstances.
House of Cards had originally been a successful television series in the United Kingdom, so of course it had to be readapted for American audiences, who presumably have no patience for British parliamentary politics. House of Cards' origins stretch back to 2008, when Fincher's agent approached the director with the idea while he was finishing up The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Fincher was interested, and enlisted his Benjamin Button writer Eric Roth to help him executive produce and develop the series. After shopping it around to various cable networks around town, they found an unexpected home in streaming movie delivery service Netflix, who was in the first stages of building a block of original programming in order to compete with the likes of HBO and Showtime. Along with Lilyhammer and the revived Arrested Development, House of Cards formed part of the first wave of this original programming, which took advantage of Netflix customers' binge-watching habits by releasing all episodes at once, instead of parsing them out over the space of several weeks. It was, and still is, a groundbreaking way to consume television.
Did you smell that? The smugness, the false deference. She thinks I can be bought with a pair of tickets. What am I, a whore in post-war Berlin, salivating over free stockings and chocolate? What she's asking will cost far more than that.
Funnily enough, the reunion between Fincher and his 7-star Kevin Spacey didn't occur out of their natural friendship, but because Netflix found in its performance statistics a substantial overlap between customers who had an affinity for Fincher and Spacey on their own. As such, executives at Netflix were able to deduce and mathematically reinforce the conclusion that another collaboration between both men would generate their biggest audience. This also gave them the confidence to commit to 2 full seasons from the outset, instead of adhering to traditional television's tried-and-true practice of producing a pilot before ordering a full series. Admittedly, the use of metrics and numbers instead of gut instinct might be a cynical way to approach programming, but in this case, the idea really paid off. Under Fincher's expert guidance, Spacey has delivered one of the best performances of his career, and House of Cards has emerged as one of the most critically acclaimed serialized dramas around, rivaling the likes of such heavyweights as Mad Men, The Wire, and Breaking Bad. Fincher directed the first 2 episodes in the series, which takes place during the inauguration of fictional President Garrett Walker. Kevin Spacey has always been a well-respected actor, but his performance as the Walker administration minority whip, Frank Underwood, reminds us of his unparalleled level of talent.
I hold them all accountable.
What, retribution?
No. It's more than that. Take a step back. Look at the bigger picture.
I think I see what you're getting at. Kern first?
That's how you devour a whale, Doug. One bite at a time.
Underwood is an unconventional narrator, straddling a line between an omniscient and personal point of view. A Southern gentleman from South Carolina first, and a Democrat second, Underwood is a ruthlessly calculating and manipulative politician. But at the same time, he's endlessly charismatic and armed with an endless supply of euphemisms and folksy proverbs.
Where I come from in South Carolina, people didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. A rack of ribs was a luxury, like Christmas in July.
Although Spacey and Fincher haven't worked together on this close a scale since 1995, it seems they're able to slip right into the proceedings with a great degree of confidence and comfort.
Remember this moment when you resisted me. When you said the words, then there is no story. Get a good night's sleep, Miss Barnes. You have a big day tomorrow.
Robin Wright, also on her second collaboration with Fincher after The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, plays Underwood's wife, Claire. Every bit as strong and calculating as her husband, the character of Claire adds a distinctly Shakespearean air to the story by channeling the insidiously supportive archetype of Lady Macbeth.
You don't usually underestimate people, Francis.
I know. Hubris. Ambition.
You should be angry.
I'm livid.
Then where is that? I don't see it.
What do you want me to do? Scream and yell? Throw a tantrum?
I want more than I'm seeing. You're better than this, Francis.
Well, I'm sorry, Claire. I am sorry.
No, that I won't accept.
What?
Apologies.
The CEO of a successful nonprofit, Claire pulls her weight around the Underwood household and becomes Frank's rock during difficult times. Wright does a great job of making Claire inherently likable and relatable, despite her outwardly cold characterization.
This is the Washington Herald, Zoe. It's not TMZ.
Do you know how many people watch TMZ?
I couldn't care less.
Which is why print journalism is dying.
Then it'll die with dignity, at least at this paper.
You are stuck in the 20th century, Lucas. You lack imagination.
Maybe so, but right now I don't need imagination. I need copy.
With House of Cards, the Mara family establishes something of a dynasty in their collaborations with Fincher. After Rooney's career-making performances in The Social Network and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, older sister Kate proves every bit Rooney's equal as Zoe Barnes, a wet-around-the-ears journalist for the Washington Herald. Plucky, street-smart, and ambitious, Barnes is able to use her intelligence as a tool of empowerment, just as well as her sex.
Look, they let me off. It's all taken care of.
Honestly, Peter, do you really think these things just take care of themselves?
It was just this one time, Frank. I swear to God.
Then you must hold God in very low esteem, because we both know that's a lie.
Corey Stoll and Mahershala Ali, as Peter Russo and Remy Denton, respectively, are the standouts amidst the clutter of Fincher's supporting cast.
This isn't your driver's license. It's a Starbucks card. Sir, have you been drinking?
No, I never drink coffee at this hour.
Stoll's Russo is a politician from East Pennsylvania who has problems with alcohol and drug abuse. He's severely disorganized and impulsive, despite his promising intelligence and ambition.
So, when there's billions on the line, you can't not call me back, and I can't not show up.
Fine, thank you for your diligence.
8 figures to you in the DCCC, $6 million to build that library of yours in your name.
I know.
Don't make them throw money at your challenger next cycle.
Ali's Denton is almost the exact opposite, super focused, disciplined, and exceedingly principled. Denton is a high-powered lawyer who serves as a great foil to Underwood's scheming. Ali's performance also benefits due to having worked with Fincher before on The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Like all of Fincher's late career work, House of Cards is shot entirely digitally, taking advantage of the Red Epic's pure, clean image to convey the series' sterile, almost surgical tone. Instead of hiring a cinematographer that he's worked with before, Fincher enlists the eye of Igor Breld, who ably replicates the director's signature aesthetic. The cold, steely color palette has been desaturated to a pallid monotone in its treatments of blues, teals, and grays. Warm tones, like practical lights that serve to create a soft, cavernous luminous in the interior chambers, are dialed into the yellow side of the color spectrum. The aesthetic deviates from Fincher's style, however, in opting for a much shallower focus, even in wide shots.
Kern is out.
They're tossing him?
Technically, he'll withdraw himself, but yes.
House of Cards plays like an old-school potboiler espionage thriller, featuring shadowy compositions and strategic placement of subjects in his frame that are reminiscent of classic cloak and dagger cinema. The camera work is sedate, employing subtle dolly work when need be. The effect is a patient, plodding pace that echoes Underwood's unrelenting focus and forward-driven ambition.
I love that woman. I love her more than sharks love blood.
Perhaps the most effective visual motif is the inspired breaking of the fourth wall, when Spacey pulls out of the scene at hand to monologue directly to the camera.
What a martyr craves more than anything is a sword to fall on. So you sharpen the blade, hold it at just the right angle, and then 3, 2, 1.
It should be me.
A technique that's borrowed from the original British version of the show, Spacey delivers these sidebar moments with a deliciously dry wit, enriching what might otherwise be a stale story of everyday politics and injecting it with the weight of Shakespearean drama.
Power is a lot like real estate. It's all about location, location, location. The closer you are to the source, the higher your property value. Centuries from now, when people watch this footage, who will they see smiling just at the edge of the frame?
So help me God. Congratulations.
The foundation of Fincher's use of this technique can be seen in 1999's Fight Club, where he had Edward Norton address the audience directly in a few select sequences. House of Cards fully commits to this idea, doing away with conventional voiceover entirely. While it's been used in endless parodies since the series' release, the very fact that the technique is commonly joked about points to its fundamental resonance. Another visual conceit that has been copied by other pop culture works is the superimposition of text message conversations over the action, rather than cutting to an insert shot of the message displayed on the cell phone screen. Considering that characters have been texting each other in movies for almost 10 years now, it's surprising that it took us this long for the on-screen subtitle conceit to enter into the common cinematic language. It's an inspired way to dramatize pedestrian, everyday exchanges, and in the context of the show, these texts become the modern-day equivalent of the coded messages found in classic cloak and dagger stories. Behind the camera, Fincher retains most of his regular department heads save for one new face. Donald Graham Burt returns as production designer, creating authentic replicas of the hallowed halls and chambers of Washington, D.C. Kirk Baxter, who normally edits Fincher's features with Angus Wall, goes solo in House of Cards, weaving everything together in a minimalist yet effective fashion. The ever-dependable Ren Kleiss returns as sound designer, giving an overly talky drama some much-needed sonic embellishment. The only new face in the mix is Jeff Beal, who composes the series' music. Beale's theme for House of Cards is instantly iconic, fueled by an electronic pulse that bolsters traditional orchestral strings and horns, echoing the romantic statues of fallen heroes that dot the DC landscape with a patriotic, mournful sound. The series doesn't rely on much in the way of needle drops, so Fincher's inclusion of 2 pre-recorded tracks is worth noting. The first episode features an inaugural ball where we hear Dmitri Shostakovich's Second Waltz, which cinephiles should recognize as the main theme to Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. Additionally, the second episode features Leonard Skinner's Freebird when Russo goes to visit a conspiracy theorist in rural Massachusetts. While not exactly the most original choice of music, it's appropriate enough and evokes Fincher's rock and roll music video roots. For visionary directors like Fincher, television is a difficult medium, primarily because of the need to work within a strictly defined set of aesthetic boundaries. While this is changing and becoming a better stage for visually dynamic work every day, the conventional ideal is to direct the pilot so as to set the style and make the entire series conform around it. In that regard, House of Cards as a series absolutely oozes Fincher's influence, despite the rest of the episodes being helmed by different directors. This phenomenon can be ascribed to the fact that Fincher's episodes dovetail quite nicely with several themes and imagery he's built his career on exploring. Take the opening titles, for instance. While they are usually part and parcel with a conventional television experience, Fincher makes them his own by showing time-lapse footage of Washington, D.C. locales, suggesting the bustling scope of his stage, while further exploring the passage of time as a thematic idea. This theme is also reflected in Fincher's depiction of DC's iconic architecture. Like he did in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, his compositions and location selections, when taken as a whole, suggest a clash between the old Washington and the new. Old DC, marked by classical colonial structures like the White House and the Lincoln Memorial, face off against the growing tide of steel and glass towers, or the modern infrastructural design of subway stations. A key takeaway of House of Cards is that Washington, D.C., a city defined by its romantic memorials to the past, is increasingly modernizing into a world city of the future. This transition is aided by mankind's increasing dependence on, and complicated relationship with, technology, another core idea that Fincher has grappled with throughout his career. House of Cards' focusing prism is communication. Cell phones, text messages, the internet, Apple computers, CNN. The series goes to great lengths to depict how information is disseminated in the digital age, with government and the media forming a complex, symbiotic relationship.
I am very glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
In asking the audience to root for, essentially, the bad guy, House of Cards echoes the strong undercurrent of nihilism that marks Fincher's stories.
Nobody can hear you. Nobody cares about you. Nothing will come of this. Why don't you let these nice gentlemen take you home?
Underwood is less of a protagonist than he is an anti-hero. Objectively, he's a bad person who's scheming to outright steal the presidency to rule the free world as he sees fit. In real life, we'd react to this sort of notion with outrage. Just ask anyone who's ever irrationally obsessed over the birth certificate of a certain standing president. However, we can't help but root for Underwood to succeed, simply because he's just so damn attractive and charismatic, on top of actually being, a fully fleshed out, relatable person with moral shades of gray, and not a stock villain archetype. House of Cards' groundbreaking release was met with quite the warm reception. It was nominated for several Emmys, a big deal for a series that hadn't been broadcast first on television, and launched Netflix into HBO's orbit in terms of compelling original content. For Fincher as a director, House of Cards served as a great comeback after the disappointment of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. The series is a confident exploration of man's lust for power in our complicated governmental structure, and wouldn't be nearly as successful without Fincher's guiding hand. He uses black and white digital cinematography and a 240:1 aspect ratio to echo the polished, sleek vibe of Timberlake's song. While a lot of his earlier music videos were shot in black and white to achieve a sense of grit, there's a great interplay between light and dark throughout the piece, both in the broad strokes like the dramatic silhouettes he gets from his high-contrast lighting setups, as well as smaller types. Fincher's exploration of our relationship with technology sees a brief occurrence here, as Timberlake and Jay-Z utilize state-of-the-art recording equipment in the studio, as well as employ iPads as part of the songwriting process. Fincher features Apple products in his work so much more prominently than other filmmakers that one would be forgiven for thinking he's got a secret product placement deal with them. Architecture also plays a subtle role in the video, seen in Timberlake's slick, modern bachelor pad, as well as the Art Deco stylings and graceful arches of the stage he performs on. As his first music video in several years, Suit and Tie finds Fincher working at the top of his game in familiar territory. It's easily one of his best music videos, and will no doubt serve as a taste-making piece and an influence for many pop videos to come. Later that same year, Fincher collaborated once again with Rooney Mara in a spot for Calvin Klein perfume called Downtown. Also shot in digital black and white, the spot finds Fincher and Mara eschewing the punky grunge of their previous collaboration in favor of an edgy, glamorous look. Mara herself is depicted as a modern-day Audrey Hepburn, hounded and adored by the press as she attends junkets and does photo shoots. But she's also seen engaging in daily urban life and riding the subway, while listening to her iPod naturally. Fincher's love of architecture is seen in several setups, the most notable being a shot prominently featuring Mara framed against New York City's George Washington Bridge. The whole piece is scored to a track by Karen O, a kindred spirit of Mara's and Fincher's, who provided the vocals for Trent Reznor's rearrangement of Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song on The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Overall, Downtown is a brilliantly executed and stylish spot that sells its product beautifully. '14 2014 saw Fincher direct a series of 4 commercial spots for The Gap. In a bid to regain some cultural cool factor, Gap released a campaign entitled Dress Normal. To his credit, Fincher achieves Gap's goals brilliantly, creating 4 effortlessly cool and stylish pieces. Titled Golf, Stairs, Kiss, and Drive, all are presented in stark shades of black and white, rendered crisply onto the digital frame. Fincher eschews a sense of modernity for a jazzy mid-century vibe, with the old-fashioned production design and cinematography coming across as a particularly well-preserved lost film from the French New Wave. Each spot pairs together a couple, or groups, of beautiful urbanites living out the prime of their youth in generic urban environments. Fincher's hand is most evident in the sleek modern camera work that belies the campaign's timeless appeal. He employs a variety of ultra-smooth dolly and technocrane movements that effortlessly glide across his vignettes while hiding the true complexity of the moves themselves. All in all, Fincher's dress normal spots are quite effective, injecting some much-needed style and sex appeal into Gap's branding efforts. The treacherous world of domesticity serves as the setting of Fincher's 10th feature film, Gone Girl. Fincher's filmography trades in nihilistic protagonists with black hearts and ruthless convictions, so naturally, the churning machinations and double crosses of author Gillian Flynn's novel of the same name were an effortless match for his sensibilities. Working with producers Joshua Donen, Arnon Milchan, Reese Witherspoon, as well as his own producing partner Sion Chafin, Fincher manages to infuse a nasty undercurrent of his trademark gallows humor into the piece, making for a highly enjoyable domestic thriller that stands to be included amongst his very best work.
As you all know, my wife, Amy Elliott Dunne, disappeared 3 days ago. I had nothing to do with the disappearance of my wife. I'm cooperating with the police. I haven't hired a lawyer. I have nothing to hide.
Where's your wife, Nick?
Let the police do their job.
What did you do to your pregnant wife?
Ben Affleck headlines the film as Nick Dunne, the struggling family man at the center of the story. He skewers his real-life image as a handsome leading man by bringing to the fore a natural douchebag quality we've always suspected he possessed.
I didn't tell you that she didn't want kids because she didn't want me to, okay? Because it would have just been another reason for you to hate her, and we had enough of those already, so it was easier to just...
Lie to me?
Look, right. I wanted kids. When we first moved here, I went to a fertility clinic.
It didn't work?
I did my part.
Dunne covers up his supreme narcissism and anger issues with a thin layer of charm, finding the perfect balance between a sympathetic protagonist who is in way over his head and a slick operator who thinks he's got his game on lock.
I didn't touch you.
You didn't need to.
Bullshit. At notice of disposal. I have that. You threw it out.
The notice? Yes.
I want a blood test. I want a paternity test.
I love tests.
As Amy Dunne, Rosamund Pike conjures up one of the most terrifying villainesses in screen history. An icy, calculating sociopath, Amy will do anything and everything necessary to carry out the perfect plot against her husband, even if the physical harm she deals out is on herself. Pike's skin-crawling performance resulted in the film's only Academy Award nomination, but it's a well-deserved one that will be remembered for quite some time. If the pairing of Affleck and Pike as Gone Girl's leads seems a bit odd or off-center, then Fincher's supporting cast boasts an even more eclectic collection of characters.
You were together for 2 years in boarding school, right?
She was my first serious girlfriend.
Why did you break up?
That's a strange question.
Did you treat her bad? Did you cheat on her?
That's a rude question.
Neil Patrick Harris, Doogie Howser himself, plays Amy's college sweetheart Desi Collins, a rich pretty boy and pseudo-stalker with bottomless reserves of inherited funds. He's so intent on dazzling Amy with his high-tech toys and spacious homes that he's completely oblivious to her machinations against him.
Amy, I am so happy that you are here. And I don't want you to worry for one moment. There are cameras everywhere.
Primarily known for his comedic roles in TV and film, NPH makes a successful bid for more serious roles with a performance that's every bit as twisted as the two leads.
Desi. 20 years you have kept me dangling. Finally, last night you came to me and you chose me. Follow that instinct. Don't trust the instinct that left you beaten and homeless, sleeping in your car, fearing for your life. I'm not gonna force myself on you.
Beating him in the stunt casting department, however, is off-malign director Tyler Perry. The news of his involvement in Gone Girl was met with gasps of disbelief and confusion by the blogosphere. But here's the thing. Tyler Perry is great in this movie.
I didn't kill my wife. What are you doing?
Every time you look smug or annoyed or tense, I'm gonna hit you with a gummy bear.
He effortlessly falls into the role of Tanner Bolt, a high-powered celebrity lawyer from New York, soothing Nick with his seasoned expertise while wearing expensive designer suits so comfortable they might as well be sweatpants. He's extremely convincing as a whip-smart, cunning attorney, never once hinting at the fact that this is the same man who became rich and famous for wearing a fat suit under a muumuu.
Without a body, without a murder weapon, their only hope is a confession. So you let them do all the talking. That way we can jumpstart your defense.
Emily Ratajkowski and Patrick Fugit are effective as Nick's jiggly co-ed mistress Andy and the no-nonsense officer Gilpin, respectively.
Interesting.
What's that?
House is rented in her name. Cars in her name. Credit cards, utilities, phone bill, all in her name. Even his bar is in her name.
Gone Girl's real revelation is character actress Kim Dickens. Calling to mind a modern, more serious version of Frances McDormand's folksy homicide investigator in Fargo, Dickens's Detective Boney is highly observant and sly.
This area right here, it looked wrong from the second we saw it. Whole thing looked staged. I mean, watch this.
The joy in watching Dickens's performance is seeing her internal struggle against the growing realization that none of her prior experience or expertise could ever prepare her for Amy's level of scheming.
I can't believe we haven't arrested this guy.
We're not gonna arrest anybody just because some blonde dunce says so.
Why are you going so easy on him? You got a crush?
One, I am conducting an investigation, not a witch hunt. And two, don't talk to me that way ever.
She was trying to buy a gun.
We don't know who or what was scaring her, Gil. Give me the update.
Gone Girl retains Fincher's signature look, thanks to the return of his regular cinematographer Jeff Cronin. As a team, they've built their careers out of using new filmmaking technologies to fit their needs, and Gone Girl isn't one to break the tradition. One of the earliest features to shoot on Red Cinema's new Dragon sensor, Gone Girl was captured full frame at 6K resolution, and then thrown into a 240:1 matted 4K timeline in post-production. This allowed Fincher and his editing partner Kirk Baxter to recompose their frames as they saw fit, with razor precision and minimal quality degradation. This circumstance also afforded the ability to employ better camera stabilization and a bid to perfect that impossibly smooth sense of movement that Fincher prefers. As one of the medium's most vocal proponents of digital technology, Fincher inherently understands the advantages of the format, an understanding that empowers him with the ability to make truly uncompromised work. Appropriate to its subject matter, Gone Girl is a very dark film. Fincher and Cronin use dark wells of shadow to convey a foreboding mood, while Fincher's signature cold color palette renders Nick's trials in bleak hues of blue, yellow, green, and gray. Red, a color that Fincher claims is too distracting on film, rarely appears in Gone Girl, save for when he specifically wants your attention on a small detail of the frame, like, say, a small blood splatter on the hood over the kitchen stove. Despite the consistent gloom, the film does occasionally find short moments of warm golden sunlight and deeply saturated color. Fincher's slow, creeping camera work leers with omniscience, placing its characters at an emotional arm's distance. Knowing Fincher's background as a commercial director, it's not surprising to see Gone Girl throw around nonchalant product placement for flyover country conglomerations like Walmart, KFC, and Dunkin' Donuts. Looking back over his other features, it's clear that Fincher has never been one to shy from the presence of well-known brands in his frame. Indeed, a large chunk of his bank account is there as a direct result of his interaction with brand names and logos. Product placement is a controversial topic amongst filmmakers, with many seeing the intrusion of commerce as an almost pornographic sacrilege towards art. But Fincher's view seems to be that reality is simply saturated with corporate logos, branding, and advertisements. So why should a film striving for realism be any different?
I have to kiss you now.
Is that right?
Can't let you go through a sugar storm unkissed.
In Nine Inch Nails frontman Trent Reznor and his musical partner Atticus Ross, Fincher has found a kindred spirit, and their third collaboration together doesn't surprise in its aim to deliver something entirely unexpected.
Wait for your clueless husband to start his day. Off he goes, and the clock is ticking. Meticulously stage your crime scene with just enough mistakes to raise the specter of doubt. You need to bleed. A lot.
Working from Fincher's brief that the music reside in the space between calm and dread, Reznor and Ross's electronic score for Gone Girl is characterized by soothing, ambient tones interrupted by a pulsing staccato that conveys the razor-sharp undercurrents of malice that Amy so effortlessly hides behind her statuesque facade.
Detective! Excuse me, I'm Noelle Hawthorne. I'm Amy's best friend.
Well, great. Where do you live, Noelle?
5 doors down, 1032.
Wonderful. I would love to talk to you. Can I come by in half an hour?
Y'all know anything yet?
I'm sorry. I got guys on the clock in here, but you give me 30 minutes.
That's usually bath time.
Well, we'll talk in between shampoos.
Outside of John Williams and Steven Spielberg, it's hard to think of a composer-director partnership where each artist's aesthetic is so perfectly suited towards the other. Reznor, Ross, and Fincher have cultivated a symbiotic relationship that, together with Fincher's regular sound designer Ren Kleiss and his consistently excellent and immersive soundscapes, elevates any project they undertake into a darkly sublime experience.
What scared me wasn't that he'd pushed me. What scared me was how much he wanted to hurt me more. What scared me was that I'd finally realized I am frightened of my own husband.
A nihilistic sentiment abounds in Gone Girl, falling quite effortlessly into Fincher's larger body of work. The same attention to detail and insight into the banal side of law enforcement that marks Zodiac is present in Gone Girl's almost clinical depiction of the day-to-day process of investigating such a luridly mysterious crime. Two of Fincher's most consistent fascinations as a director, architecture and technology, play substantial roles in the drama, but never at the expense of story and character. The architecture that Fincher concerns himself with in Gone Girl is the domestic structures in which we house our families, or to put it another way, the castles in which we shelter our charges. However, as seen through the perspective of Fincher's particularly dark and ironic sense of humor, our suburban castles instead become prisons. The neutral tones of upper-middle-class domesticity that pervade Amy and Nick's McMansion are almost oppressive in their blandness, while the structural elements on which they are painted bear no characteristics of the values of those who inhabit them. Fincher reinforces this idea by shooting from low angles to expose the ceiling, suggesting that the walls are figuratively closing in on his characters. Likewise, Desi Collins's grandiose, rustic lakeside retreat is simply too spacious to ever feel constricting or claustrophobic, what with its cathedral-height vaulted ceilings and oversized windows letting in an abundance of sunlight. However, Desi has rigged his well-appointed home with an overblown array of security cameras and other surveillance, effectively trapping Amy inside if she wishes to remain under the auspices of missing, presumed dead. And speaking of technology, Fincher places a substantial focus on Nick's distractions with video games, cell phones, oversized televisions, and robot dogs. This boys with toys mentality is quite appropriate to Fincher's vision, as it's crucial to the authenticity of Amy's convictions that Nick has fallen prey to that all-too-common suburban phenomenon of men turning to the stimulation afforded by electronics and gadgets after growing tired of their wives. The dangers of growing complacent in your marriage, whereby we distract ourselves with screens instead of with each other, is a key message in Gone Girl, and Fincher's career-long exploration of mankind's relationship to technology makes him a particularly suitable messenger.
You think you'd be happy with a nice Midwestern girl? No way, baby. I'm Ed.
Look, you're delusional. I mean, you're insane. Why would you even want this? Yes, I loved you, and then all we did was resent each other and try to control each other and cause each other pain.
That's marriage.
Thanks in part to Gone Girl's high profile as a best-selling book, as well as Fincher's own profile as a highly skilled artist with a fervent cult following, the film was a strong player in the box office game. Currently, it holds the records for Fincher's highest-grossing theatrical run in the United States. Critical reviews were mostly positive, and while it received only one nomination for Pike's performance at the Oscars, it's generally regarded as one of the best films of 2014. The tone and subject matter of Gone Girl may not feel particularly new for Fincher, a notion that may have played into the film's lack of Oscar nominations. But this well-trodden ground provides a solid platform for Fincher to perfect what he already does best, delivering taut, stylish thrillers with razor-sharp edges.
How are you feeling? What have we done to each other? What will we do?
Now firmly into middle age, Fincher could be forgiven for what so many other artists his age do, slowing down, mellowing out, looking backwards, worrying about legacy, and so on. It's pretty evident, however, that he has no intention of doing any of those things. While his next feature has yet to be announced, he's deep in development on several projects running the gamut from